Hello, good morning, and welcome to today's live HIPAA and cybersecurity training with Mr. Terry McDonald. My name is Jacob Borkover here with the webinar team at PCI HIPAA, and we are super fired up to be bringing you today's presentation. Terry's going to be doing a great job teaching you the ins and outs of everything you need to know about HIPAA and cybersecurity. So before I pass it along to Terry, just a few quick housekeeping notes for everyone. This is a 1.5 hour, 1.5 CE credit course. Through the Academy of General Dentistry, we have accreditation, and this will be AGD subject code 566 for HIPAA. So you will be receiving CE credits. They'll be coming your way sometime before the end of the week next week. So please be patient. We got a lot of credits to process. If for whatever reason you don't have a CE credit in your inbox by the end of next week, please send us an email and we will be sure to take care of you. In order to get that CE, we do need you to complete the polling questions throughout and make sure you stay on for the duration of the webinar. We are very strict with our accreditation, so want to make sure you're doing that. If you're joining us today from a mobile device, if you can get to a desktop, please do so. It's a lot easier to do the polling questions, and it's easier for our system to track for your CE. At the end of the webinar, we're going to be having a brief survey. I'm going to put the link in the chat, and you'll also be prompted once you exit the webinar to complete that. We're going to pick a few lucky survey respondents to win a $25 Amazon gift card. Please, please, please fill that out so we know how we're doing and we can continue to improve in putting on the best webinars for you guys. There's going to be a few different resources throughout the webinar Terry's going to talk about, including a complimentary HIPAA risk assessment. I'm going to put all that information for you in the chat so you have it, so be on the lookout for that. And we're also going to be sending a lot of resources to you in our follow-up email after the presentation. So make sure you're on the lookout for that later today. You'll be getting a follow-up email with all of the special offers, benefits, and everything from the webinar. And if you have any questions today, please put them in the chat. We'll try to get in a few if we have enough time, and we'll be answering things as they come in. So without further ado, I'm going to take a deep breath. That was a lot of stuff there, Terry. I'm very excited to introduce Terry McDonald. As Director of Compliance Solutions, Terry is considered a leader in the compliance field. He focuses on providing HIPAA, OSHA, and PCI compliance and data security solutions to thousands of mid-sized medical and dental practices. And when it comes to HIPAA and compliance, there aren't too many people who are more knowledgeable and passionate than Mr. Terry. So, Terry, I will send it into you. Go for it.
Thank you so much, Jacob. Thank you so much. And good morning, everyone, wherever you're at. I hear it's getting cold certain places around the country. I'm sorry, I'm in my short sleeves. It's about 100 degrees out here in Las Vegas. But good morning, and I guess it's afternoon for a number of you as well. So good afternoon. I'm excited. Obviously, again, my name is Terry McDonald, the Director of Compliance Solutions here at PCI HIPAA at Rectangle Health. And we all know what we're here for. We're here for an hour and a half, well, I should say 1.5 CE units on HIPAA training. And I'm excited to be here to do this for you. Mainly, I think, if anything, I hope you feel my passion for helping. That's what I'm here to do. I want to make this fun and interesting. I mean, it's compliance. We're all here for a reason. We want to run a compliant practice. We want to make sure we're certified and we get our CEs. But at the end of the day, I don't want you to fall asleep. And I want to deliver the best compliance training you've probably gotten. So I got an hour and a half to deliver. Let's dive in because I'm going to give you a lot of stuff. We're going to get a lot accomplished here today. Let's get going. Let's talk about what we're going to do today. Obviously, as Jacob just mentioned, thank you for that great introduction, Jacob. I'll definitely work to live up to everything that you said about me. Everyone stay on this whole hour and a half. I'll keep you awake. Don't worry about it. We'll get you those CE credits within a week. You'll be in great shape. And those who need additional CE, I have an additional couple CE offers for HIPAA certification. It's going to be great for you. It's going to be great for your team, whoever you designate as compliance officer. So I'll be able to get you all those resources at the end of the call today. And many people are probably familiar in some shape or form with our organization, Rectangle Health, our parent organization. A lot of great tools and services. PCI HIPAA is our compliance solution arm. And we've worked with nearly everybody. You can see a number of logos. This is only a fraction of them. This is what we do. We've become trusted because we are the leaders in education. Yes, we have the best in class products and all that great stuff. But how good is something if you don't know how to use it? What's a tool if you don't know how to use it, right? We're adding amazing knowledge. We want to give that knowledge to you. So that way you're a better practice, you're a better professional due to it. So thank you for trusting us with some of your education today. I'll make sure I reward you with a bang up job. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about HIPAA, of course, some of the risk considerations, things you need to be aware of, what's changed, what things that just fly under the radar. We're going to go over the typical HIPAA safeguards that you're going to need, of course. We're going to talk about the common vulnerabilities that you're going to face, which leads into all the cybersecurity that's crazy out there, the ransomware, the data breaches. I'm going to probably spend about 2 minutes just brushing on OSHA. It's so hard to separate HIPAA and OSHA, even though they're completely different. It's part of that culture of compliance that we want practices to have. I'm going to touch on OSHA really fast, give you a couple quick tips, and then I'll get you out of here with a free gift. So it'll be pretty good. So, of course, we are talking legal stuff, so I got to give you the typical disclaimers. This will be recorded for training and quality assurance purposes. We're going to send you all a copy afterwards as well. Everything I say here is not here to replace you doing your job, right? I'm here to give you guidance. I'll give you tools where we can help you execute on some of these things that may you become aware that you need improvements on, but you know, it still requires your work. So this is educational. And of course, most importantly, I need you to read all this, read this last disclaimer for me. All right, perfect. I'm assuming you guys got all that. That's just a joke, no real fine print there. The real disclaimer is that there is no one-size-fits-all compliance solution. That's the reality. The HIPAA law itself, let's see here, let's open up this law. HIPAA law itself is long and confusing. Let me pull it up for you. This is the HIPAA law, and I'm gonna highlight the word simplified here. This is the simplified version of HIPAA law. What do we got here? We have 115 pages, 3 columns each page, full of legalese. If you have trouble sleeping at night, I highly recommend this law. I don't wish this on anybody trying to read this, but this is a great example of why we're all here. Why is HIPAA difficult? Because it's not the language we speak. We're passionate about helping people, passionate about whatever your particular focus is. Maybe it's dental, whatever it may be. That's what you're passionate about, that you love talking about it, you enjoy it, this is what you do, you signed up for it. Legal stuff is not, you know, none of us, or very few of us on this call are probably lawyers. It can be heavy, it's a lot of lifting. And what it says in there is there's a lot you need to do, and it's all different depending on where you work. The moving pieces change. So that's what I mean by there's no one-size-fits-all compliance solution. I'm going to give you some general guidelines. I'll definitely give you some resources to get one-on-one help and really customize it to you and your practice. So what is HIPAA? Well, it's a law. Started in 1996. It actually includes a lot of things. We are discussing HIPAA really on the data security portion of the law. It has different parts of the law about insurance and rights, but what we're focused on here today is how it affects our practices and how we need to protect information. And that information is PHI, Protected Health Information. That is what this whole, not the whole law, but it's pretty much everything this law is about, is we have this protected health information. People have trusted us with this information. Are we keeping it safe? And this law itself has been modernized. It was really modernized in 2013 with the addition of the omnibus rule, which really modernized the law to take into account the digital and information age that we all now live in. 1996, you know, practices started getting the internet and some fax machines and whatnot. But at this point, it's all email, it's all digital files. So the law has to be adjusted for that. So now instead of just PHI, the real word or acronym is EPHI for Electronic Protected Health Information. And so this law is really all about where it comes into play for you. Areas that you should worry about, that you should consider. Is there's a couple different types of risk here. One is the non-compliance risk, naturally, right? There's government bodies out there that are holding us to this, and we don't do it the right way, it can cost us. Then there's the other side. There's all those nefarious, those criminals out there all around the world for whatever reason that are trying to steal that data from you. That can, both of these things can lead to devastating financial and reputational risk. So we want to make sure we're doing a great job. For all my doctors and business owners out there, this is your life's passion. This is what you work so hard to build. These laws are in place to help you, protect you. So take it, obviously, give it, you know, the credit it deserves and the attention it deserves. for everyone working within these practices. We all, as individuals, have dealt with some sort of breach. We've all received a letter in the mail that said, hey, I'm sorry, we had your data stolen, or your email address has been compromised. We've been on that painstaking side of worrying about our credit or our personal files being stolen. You know, we have to do unto others. You know, we got to do it the right way, just the way we would want to be treated as a patient. So it's very important, you know, doctors trusting us to do this the right way. Let's all, as we all are, let's continue to be professionals and do things the right way, you know, at the end of the day. So a couple areas that we want to consider. And what we're really trying to do is protect ourselves from these data breaches. Consumer Reports literally just had a whole report on this, but literally your most personal information is increasingly under attack. And I'm going to give you some stats on it later. But think about it. Your medical file is everything a criminal wants to be able to take your identity. I'm going to know your address, your next of kin, your social security numbers, you name it. Your medical file has everything I want if I want to steal your identity. Here's an example list of some of the categories that are PHI. It's everything. It's pretty much everything is PHI. So it's all very important that we really keep it under lock and key. This information, this list of information here, a medical file itself can easily go for over $1,000 on the internet. You can Google that, look for that, and you'll be able to see for yourself that these files are valuable. So think about how many records do you have in your practice management software? Now times that, add 3 zeros to the back of that. Add 3 zeros to the back of that. So it's crazy how much money you have in just your data. And it's just like in any scenario, you're not going to put all your life savings under the mattress and do nothing to protect it. You're not going to not lock your doors. You're going to do all that. Same thing here. We have all this data. It's valuable. We got to protect it. And here is an example of a screen you may see if you're dealing with a ransomware attack. Now I'll go back to the basics. Ransomware. It's just like it sounds like. Somebody is going to get on your computer and they're going to take over your computer. You try to turn it on. This is all you're going to see on your screen. And it's going to tell you, hey, we've stolen, we've compromised your computer. We have all your data. We don't want to sell it out there to all the criminals, but we got to do something to earn our money. So how about you pay us and say some Bitcoin, and I just give you control of your computers back. And if you don't, I'm going to go sell this money and make it the hard way out there on the black market. I'm going to make money one way or another. So do you want the easy route, doctor? Or do you want the painstaking process of dealing with a full-blown breach? And that's the position they put you in. It's crazy. And ransomware is happening every single day. It may be, for those of you who aren't too familiar with ransomware, now that I've put it out there, you're going to not be able to, you can't unsee it. You can't unhear it. Let me give you an example. Ransomware news. I'm just Googling it. I don't know what's going to pop up. I'm going to click on news here. Let's see, ransomware attack. Halts a German newspaper. Chicago, dealing with a ransomware attack. Ransom cartel linked to more ransomware operations. Singapore sets up a ransomware task force. While our conversation is around us and medical practices, this is something that's affecting all business. It is just disproportionately affecting medical practices because you have data that's so much more valuable than, say, a health like a school district. Here in Las Vegas, the school district was breached last year. And of course, the school district is not paying that ransom. All the teachers, all the students had their social security numbers released online here in Las Vegas. It's a real thing. It's happening all the time. It's not hard to find. There's websites out there. You can go to buy stolen medical records. You can go there. There's websites out there. Here's one, jstash.to. You can literally go buy stolen credit card numbers. You can still, here's a 50-pack. You can steal some PayPal accounts, some Western Union accounts, somebody's Venmo account. What's really crazy about this is they're selling this stuff and they're telling you to pay them in the same methods that they're stealing from other people. So it's really not too bright, these people out here who are buying from these criminals. But this stuff, again, is happening every single day. So what do we do? What do we do to protect ourselves? Well, what HIPAA wants you to do is they want you to run a formal and secure practice. What many of you are running is a casual and vulnerable practice. And it's not an attack on you, and you shouldn't necessarily take it personal, not yet. A lot of people aren't aware of what they need to do to run a proper, informal, and secure practice. So I'm going to teach you the way it needs to be done, so that way you can no longer live in your, I know ignorance can be bliss, and we feel very safe in our lack of awareness of how many people are trying to steal and cripple our business. But we have to become aware, because the more you have a formal, secure practice, you're going to feel good. You're going to feel comfortable. So some of the telltale signs is we have a loose training schedule when it comes to our compliance. We had somebody come in last year, or maybe it was the year before. It's hard to tell with COVID. No, we don't have someone designated as a compliance officer, or yeah, we got a HIPAA binder. It's somewhere. I haven't seen it in a while. It's got dust, some cobwebs on it. No, I don't have an emergency plan. Is that for what happens when there's a fire? Right. That's not HIPAA. That's OSHA. And then this one I always love to point out is we do our best and we use common sense. That is the telltale line of a practice that has a couple gaps. It's just the reality. Your best is, common sense is great. It really is. But let me give you an example. If your car has a number of mechanical issues and you aren't a mechanic, you can try your best to use as much common sense as you want, but you're probably going to need to go to a professional eventually to get that fixed before it becomes a lot worse. And that's kind of the way people approach compliance sometimes. It's a heavy lift. People need help, but the first step is getting educated. So props to all of you for being here doing that. So what we want to have is we want to have our employees aware of what's happening, regular training. We want to have an up-to-date, customized binder. We're going to talk a lot about that. And we've got to have these formal emergency plans on how to deal with PHI-related emergencies. So we're going to do that. What happens if we don't? Well, as you know, the government loves to fine you. So there's a range of fines. Each violation can be $100 up to $50,000 with the maximum penalty of 1.5 million bucks. I'll draw your attention to the right on tier 4, which is the willful neglect category. No effort is made to correct a violation within 30 days of discovery. This means you can't act like, if you knew something is wrong, you can't just ignore it. That's literally the definition of willful neglect, and it's very expensive. And HIPAA loves making examples of people. They don't have enough manpower to audit everybody. So they have to make examples of people, make big headlines. I'm going to show you some of those as well. So let's do our part. It doesn't have to be difficult to run a compliant practice. Once we get in shape, it's a lot easier to stay in shape. So let's talk a little bit about HIPAA law, what's required, and get into some of the basics. Just some of the basics. So what's required? Well, 3 parts to the actual law itself: the administrative safeguards, the technical safeguards, and the physical safeguards. Administrative is just like you'd expect: policies and procedures, some rules. Technical safeguards are that, where you're getting your IT involved, all that techie stuff. And physical safeguards are physical, right? Locks on doors, things that just make common sense. So this combination of things are what's really going to help us really make sure that we're running a safe and secure practice. So a couple of the basics out of the way, it's time for our first polling question. So this is what we need to do to make sure you guys get your CE credit. So let me ask you a question. Which of these is not one of the 3 key HIPAA safeguards? A, physical. B, office. C, technical. And D, administrative. Feel free.
All right, Terry. We're getting some responses in here. Let's give everyone about 15 more seconds. I see some people commenting in the chat box. Everyone, make sure you're doing it through the polling feature. All right.
And I'll reiterate that there's a chat box and there's an actual polling button there. Please try to make sure you're using the polling button. We're gonna have a couple more of those over the next hour.
All right, Terry, I'm gonna close this up here. It looks like 69% said office safeguards, 18% said physical, 11% said administrative, and 4% said technical.
All right, well, it sounds like the majority of folks have gotten it right. Yes, the one that is not one of the safeguards is office safeguards. These multiple choice questions, they like to trick you. Physical, I'm gonna go back to the last slide. Administrative, technical, physical. Don't worry, this isn't something necessarily you need to memorize. It's just part of building your awareness of there's elements that we need to make sure we're giving attention to each of these. Something like the technical safeguards, yes, you're gonna bring in an IT company to help with a lot of that, but it's still your job to make sure it's done and make sure they know what they need to get done for you. So, all right, next polling question. Oh, that was it for now. So let's talk a little bit about how do we really know how well we're doing? How do we identify where we're at? So what this is called is, let's talk about a HIPAA risk assessment. HIPAA by law wants every practice in America to do an annual HIPAA risk assessment. And the goal of this assessment, and this assessment can come in a lot of shapes and forms. There's a crazy full-blown, multi-day type of assessment. There's shortened ones. At the end of the day, this assessment is designed to tell you what your gaps are. Think of it, we have our own version of it. We're going to do it right now. It's a multiple choice quiz that's going to ask you various questions. Think of it more of a questionnaire. Ask you questions about what are you currently doing, and then it's going to give you a report, an example of here in the bottom right, that tells you where you're strong and where you're weak. And what this is this is a gift to you. This is somebody saying, hey, here is a x-ray of inside of your practice, and I can tell you what's wrong and what you need to do to fix it. So it's a guidebook on how we're going to help you. So you have to do these risk assessments every year. HIPAA wants you to do it so you know your gaps, so you can fix them before they come back to get you. So I am going to guide you all through a quick HIPAA risk assessment right now so that ultimately you knock it out for 2022 and you're more aware of the type of things that need to happen. I'm going to use it as a teaching tool the rest of this webinar. You're going to love it. So what we're going to do is we want to find out what your risk score is. So I want to stress, only one person per practice needs to get this done. So if you got 4 or 5 people from your practice in there, the one person that should be doing this should be the doctor and or the compliance officer, which is often the office manager who has to wear that hat. Whoever's in charge of compliance for the practice, for the most part, that's on this webinar, please do this risk assessment. If you're thinking to yourself, oh no, we don't have that person here today, it's okay. This is for you and your records. It doesn't matter if it's perfect. It'd be a great example for you to find out where you're at or what you're aware of within your own practice. We'll have time to get your practice another one. So one person from each practice should be getting this done. Inside the chat box, you will see a link to PCIHIPAA.com/compliance resources. Please click on that link or copy and paste it and open it into your browser now. It is on my screen. I'll give you an example of what that looks like. It's going to take you to a page that looks like this. Once you're there, scroll down. Third button after the HIPAA and OSHA checklist is the HIPAA risk assessment. Please click Complete Now on that. That is going to take you to a registration page. Your name, your last name, your doctor's name, your practice's name, your practice's phone number, your work email address. Please enter in that information. For the code optional, please type in webinar. That'll help us know it's you and it'll unlock some benefits I'll talk about later. All right, give everyone a couple more seconds. Get in there, compliance resources. Third button down is the HIPAA risk assessment. Click Complete Now. Take you to your registration screen. And then it should take you, once you register, it should look like this. You get to question 1. Feel free to just wait there for me. I'm going to guide you through this here real fast. I'm going to give you guys 30 more seconds to get caught up. While those of you are working on getting registered, I'll give you a couple details. This will kick off a 25-page report. for your practice. We are going to be following up and getting you and emailing you a copy of this risk assessment report. It should stay in your binder regardless. Doesn't matter if it shows what's wrong. We're going to give you every opportunity to fix that. But just know you are going to get a 26-page report that's going to break down everything for your practice and your answers, so you will get a copy of it. And we'll follow up with that after the webinar. All right. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and get going just to make sure that we have enough time. So, question number one of this risk assessment. Does your practice create and implement HIPAA policies and procedures for assessing and managing risk to its EPHI? Do you have policies and procedures on how to protect PHI? Yes or no? If you're not sure, it's okay. Click uncertain. Number two, when's the last time you updated that HIPAA policies and procedures in that binder? Have you done it in the last 12 months, a long time ago? You don't know because you don't even know if you have a binder with policies and procedures. Number three, does your practice maintain a formal program to mitigate the threats and vulnerabilities that are identified through the risk analysis? And are the implementation safeguards well documented? What this is asking you is, do you run a formal program that actively identifies your risks? And is every single thing you're doing to adhere to HIPAA law being documented somewhere? Everything. Number four, does your practice create and maintain workstation use, acceptable use, and sanction policies for its workforce members? At the end of the day, I'll give you an example, but there's going to be a number of policies and procedures you're required to have. These are just three of them. You know, what are the rules, for example, like workstation use around your computer? Do you need to lock your computer every time you stand up? You know, what are some of these? How often do you change that password? What are some of those? So if that sounds familiar, do you have it or do you not? Number five, does your practice have policies and procedures to review information system activity? Does your company know where you're going? My company knows every website I go to, my company can track that. So if something goes wrong, they can go back and detect that. Do you have that ability within your practice? Maybe you got to ask IT. Number six, has your practice designated a security officer to develop and implement security policies and procedures? And does that security officer fully understand what's required? Bottom line is every practice has to have a designated compliance officer that runs point on compliance. Doctor, office manager, somebody's wearing that hat. Do you have one, and have they been fully trained on what that means? Yes, no, or uncertain. Number seven, does your practice maintain records to identify each employee's access to your practice's facilities? Do you know when people enter and leave the building? For example, my office, we have a key card. It tracks when you leave and when you come in. Do you have that ability? Number eight, has your practice identified all business associate agreements that they're required to have that they share PHI with? Business associate agreements are people you're sharing this information with. For example, your EHR program, your practice management software. Every single one of you have one. You have to have a business associate agreement signed with them. Do you have that signed? Is it in your binder? If you do have this business associate agreement, does it have an indemnification clause that's going to financially protect you against a data breach? That's some legal. That's a small thing there. It's okay to be not sure about that. It's okay to not be sure. Do you screen employees and run background checks on them before you give them access to all your computers? Background checks, yes or no? When was the last time you did HIPAA training for your workforce members? When's the last time you've actually did HIPAA training? Lately, over 12 months, we don't even do training. This is our training. Welcome. Number 12, and how was that training done? Did someone come into your office? Did somebody take a course online? Did you purchase something? We do online courses, because a lot of us today. Number 13, does your practice have incident response policies that define the responsibilities and what must happen in the event of an incident or emergency? an emergency plan. If you had a ransomware attack pop up on your screen, is there a policy, the procedure somewhere that shows who and what needs to happen in the event a ransomware attack hits your practice? Do you have that? And does that emergency plan have a prioritization spelled out of when and what order things are going to be restored? Has that been tested? Has it been all of these things documented? Do you have a formal policy on how to terminate an employee or a business associate to make sure that they no longer have access to PHI? That policy needs to be in writing. Where's it at? Does your practice assure its policies and procedures are retained for at least 6 years at the end of the day? So everything you put in that binder needs to stay there for minimum 6 years. You take a risk assessment today, it needs to be in there for minimum 6 years. Does your practice maintain documentation showing that everyone has actually signed off and completed their training, and they've signed off that they understand the policies and procedures? Have they done that? If I've done training and I understand the policies and procedures, you should have a piece of paper somewhere with my signature that says I did it every year. And that piece of paper should be there for 6 straight years, minimum. Do you understand the requirements of the breach notification rule? If you had a breach, do you know what you're supposed to do? The steps you're supposed to take, yes or no? Does your practice have policies and procedures to assign a unique ID to each system user? Basically, do your employees have employee numbers that help you track when they access the computers and things like that? Can you track your employees? How are you currently handling your data backup of that PHI? Do you have an on-site solution, a hard drive? Is it cloud-based, off-site? Do you not know? You got to ask IT. And if you are backing it up, how many sets of it are you keeping? One for every day, multiple sets every day? You're not sure. Do your policies and procedures have a copy? Does your policies and procedures outline how to restore a copy of your PHI in the event? So we have this data backup. We have it in case we ever need to access it. Do you have a policy and procedure that explains to you how to do that? And have you ever tested that? Have you ever acted like you had to wipe your computers and restore all the data? You have to test that. You don't want to wait till there's a fire to make sure the fire extinguisher works. All right, number 24, does your practice have audit controls that can examine information activity? Basically, I told you we want to track what employees do on the computers. Do we have controls that can then, do we have a process where we go back and review that and make sure it's all good? Do you have a plan to protect passwords and confidentiality? And do you have policies in place that outline how to keep information private and passwords private? Do you have that policy and procedure? Number 6, do you have email encryption? Every time you transmit PHI, do you have an encrypted email account? You have to have an encrypted email account when sending PHI. Do you have it? Do you have email scanning to make sure that it's being scanned, to make sure there's no phishing and viruses and whatnot? Do you have email scanning software? And who's in charge of all this antivirus software and these firewalls? Is it your IT? Is it the office manager? Do you not know? Do you use mobile devices? Yes or no? Well, this is written, we do not use. So if you don't use mobile devices like cell phones, click true. If you do, click false. What about laptops? If you don't use them around the office, click true. If you do, click false. Do you have an inventory somewhere of all these electronic devices that may have ePHI? You have to have a list and an inventory of every single computer device that has access. Where is that list? If you don't have it, you need one. Again, we have to have a policy and procedures on how we access this PHI in the event of emergency. Do you have a policy procedure that says how in the event of a flood do people get in here and use our facilities and access important medical records? You have to know that. Number 33, do you have specific policies and procedures in place on how to protect computers when you're using remote access? So if you access your computer remotely, is there VPNs, is there policies and procedures in place? Number 34, have you developed and implemented policies and procedures on how you should get rid of electronic devices, right? I can't just take my computer and throw it in the trash. You have to make sure that people can go still get information off the hard drive. You have to have a plan and a policy and procedure on how you're going to do that. Do you take credit cards? If so, how do you do it? Credit card terminals? Do you do it integrated into your practice management software? Do you have a payment gateway that you log into online? How do you do that? And in order to do that, you have to take a self-assessment questionnaire every year. Have you done that? It takes 3 to 6 hours to complete. You'll probably remember doing that in order to renew your credit card licensing. Have you performed a scan of your IP address within the last quarter? Every quarter, your IP address has to go underneath vulnerability testing in order to stay PCI compliant. Are you getting that scanning done every 3 months? And you have to have a PCI certificate that shows your PCI compliance. PCI is your credit card compliance. Do you have that certificate on file? If not, you're probably paying some fees. If you do, good. And also, obviously, 39 is the same. Would you be interested in a complimentary merchant account review? Hey, my team can help you look at that statement. If you don't know if you're PCI certified, if you're paying PCI fees, all these things, junk fees, my team will help you get those removed for free. So we're here to help. If you want that, all we're going to do is teach you how to make more money and collect more money. So no downside there. Almost there. Does your practice currently carry any insurance that protects against ransomwares, HIPAA fines, or other loss of business profits related to a data breach? So this is cybersecurity insurance. You have to have it these days. It's not required. It's just common sense. You need it. So do you have cybersecurity insurance? If not, we got to get you some. We'll talk about it. Obviously, this is just letting us know if you are interested in learning how to get cybersecurity insurance, just click yes, and I'll make sure my team gives you the best resources at the best prices. Last but not least, we're almost there, 2 more. How many patient records do you have? Most practices have over 1,000. How many do you have? Older practices are going to have more. How many locations do you have? 1, 2, multi-locations? Let us know. So when we give you that one-on-one help, we can make sure we customize it to your needs. And last but not least, how long have you been in business? We just want to understand our audience. 11 years, 10 years, 5, doesn't matter. After you're done, please click submit. That is it. That is your HIPAA risk assessment. Painful, I know, but that's as easy as it gets as well. We make getting these HIPAA risk assessments done really, really easy. It may have been, I guided you through it, but the results are what's really going to be telling. So after you click submit, it's going to sit there and do its thing. It's going to start working. I would imagine, I think all of us, probably 700 of us at the same time hit submit. So it's working its magic. So I want to tell you what's going to happen next on that. So my team is getting a copy of all your reports. After this is done, you'll have an opportunity to schedule some time with my team and they'll walk you through it for free. Well, we're not going to say, hey, you got all this wrong. We're going to teach you what's wrong exactly, and we'll be very specific on what you need to do to fix it. So we'll follow up with that at the end of the call. All right, let's get going. We only have a little bit of time. So I'm going to get your score. We'll knock it out. So let's talk a little bit about common vulnerabilities. What are some of the common vulnerabilities? Well, some of it is things that you wouldn't even expect. I'll start with those credit card terminals. I think we were just leaving there. This was a crazy headline at the time, because when I say these guys want to steal your information and your credit card stuff, they literally were building the technology to steal your information directly into the equipment before it left the factory. It's mind-blowing. So they're getting creative all the time. It's always very interesting what's happening out there. But I do want to touch on that PCI compliance in detail, because a lot of the PCI breaches those are also HIPAA breaches. So you're dealing with 2 types of compliance issues when there's a PCI breach. So PCI compliance, to go back to the basics, every practice who takes credit cards has to be PCI compliant. And there's 3 things that must happen to be PCI compliant. Number 1, you need to have that vulnerability testing I told you about done every quarter. Every 3 months, your system should be getting scanned, making sure that there's no holes in it for criminals to go through. That needs to happen every quarter. Then every year, you need to do what's called a self-assessment questionnaire. Okay, that self-assessment questionnaire is going to be that 2 to 6 hour quiz that's really going to help them understand, depending on how you take credit cards, they're going to have questions for you around it. And so ultimately, you have to do that every year. That combination of getting your scans done and doing your SAQ gives you the ability to file and get your PCI certificate, which says, I am PCI compliant. You want that because you're likely, without that, going to be getting charged fees from your processor, and you're just throwing away money. And if you were to ever deal with a breach, you're facing a situation where you may lose the ability to take credit cards ever again and be fined. So you want to be PCI compliant. It's going to save you money and keep you safe. Okay. So I mentioned a little bit about the scans already and what needs to happen there. A lot has changed in the industry. You have to have, right, the option. Every card now has the chip. That wasn't always the case. Europe was always way ahead of us on these things. Just know, the only thing I'm going to tell you on that is if the card has a chip, you need to use it. If somebody disputes a charge and it had a chip and you didn't use it, then they automatically win the dispute. So always dip the chip. That's my one bit of advice there for you. Let's now move into talking about the cybersecurity a little bit. Some of the headlines I think are great examples. People think that this stuff isn't happening, but it's happening all the time. CNN, I don't care if you go to Fox News or CNN, it doesn't matter to me. We're talking compliance. Hundreds of dental offices crippled by a ransomware attack. I love this example. I mean, it says here, we have no access to patient charts, schedules, x-rays, or even the payment ledger. They can't do work and they can't get paid. The doctor cannot do proper treatment without a chart history and x-rays. This is just an example. This crippled hundreds of practices, and it wasn't even directly the practice. It was their IT provider that got hacked. The IT provider who handled their data backup and had access to their practice management system, they got hacked. That put all these hundreds and hundreds of practices out of business for at least momentarily. So these are the things where you need insurance to protect yourself from just business loss, even if it wasn't you that was directly breached. I love this one. I love this cartoon. Here we go. I think we may need to update our disaster recovery plan. This one suggests we all run around in circles shouting, what do we do? What do we do? I always just find that funny because a lot of us, that's our emergency plan. Our emergency plan is, I hope things don't go wrong, right? A lot of HAP, hope and prayer. But reality is we can't just run around in circles showing what we do. If you're on this call, you're a leader in your practice, no matter what. You're a professional, you take compliance seriously, you're a leader. In these moments and emergencies, leaders need to act. They need to take action. And so how do we do that? Well, that's all the contingency planning. You have to, in the event we dealt with, say, one of these ransomware attacks, how do we handle our data? How do we restore that data? And how do we keep going and keep operating when it comes to business? So let's talk about each of those. So first, I want to talk about data backup. You need to ask yourself, how are you backing up your data now? Have you ever tried restoring it? How many data sets do you maintain? If your computers went down, ask yourself, how long would you really be able to keep working? How quickly does your business grind to a halt? And is all that data you're storing, is it really encrypted at a certain level? Data backup is so important these days on so many levels in protecting your business. I am literally here as the Director of Compliance Solutions, and we have over 6,000 practices across the US, right? We have practices in the cornfields of Iowa to Alaska. Every single state has our practices. I've seen every type of breach. I've seen the pain it causes, the frustration, the headaches, And I would never wish this on anybody. But the reality is how long that headache is and how bad that headache is, you do have some control over. If you have this emergency plan in place, you can limit the effects of the breach. You can at least know you have a plan on how to get out of the worst morning you're probably ever going to have at your practice when you deal with a ransomware attack. And having access to that data is everything. If my computers need to be wiped right now, how quickly can I get them back up and running so I can run my business at the end of the day? So data backup is super important. You should have a secondary data backup as well. Your first method can go down at any time. You should have a second set that's cloud-based, of course with 256-bit encryption, that's off-site. And so most of our practices, we always recommend they have a main source of data backup and a secondary source of data backup. For example, a lot of our clients, we are their secondary data backup because we're their emergency response team. Something goes wrong, we'll make sure that they're okay. But if it's just you on your own, you need to make sure that you have multiple options there. Next thing that's really important is email encryption. I mentioned you have to have it. I think we all have dealt with different practice, maybe say insurance companies that send you PHI and you got to do an extra little step to log in and access that information. It's the same thing. When you send out PHI, it should be using your email encryption, the email that's encrypted at the end of the day. So I don't want to spend a bunch of time on this, but if you have email and you send PHI, it has to be encrypted. So if some of you guys are still using services like Gmail and Yahoo and AOL, I love those AOL emails, by the way. I love seeing those. It takes me back. But the reality is those aren't as protected as you need them to be. And I mean, personally, they're not as professional as I think you should be, but everyone's a little bit different. I love it. I still got my Hotmail account. I just wouldn't use it in business, that's for sure. So a lot of email, and the reason why email encryption is so important is a lot of the breaches come from those emails, right? You open up the wrong email, you think it's something else, that's called phishing, and then it leads to something else. I'll give you some examples of that too. So, just make sure people are trained on understanding that a lot goes wrong via email. So be careful when they open emails, make sure they're encrypted, and don't send out PHI without it being encrypted. All right, let's talk a little bit of privacy here. HIPAA is all about privacy. I don't want people knowing about the procedures I had, right? I don't want people to know I had my head lasered this morning, but whatever it may be, it's my personal business, okay? I didn't, it's just gone. According to HIPAA release form, I can't share anything with you. I like this cartoon because it feels that way sometimes with HIPAA. It's like, wait, I can't tell their spouse without their consent. I can't tell this company without their consent. I can't tell. Can I even tell you anything? That's the way HIPAA feels. It feels very restrictive. So what can we share and what can't we share when we're so busy focusing on protecting this PHI? So I would say, for example, just in general, just a covered entity, which is you, must obtain the individual's written authorization for any use or disclosure of protected information. So written means it needs to be in writing and it needs to be very specific of what information we're going to actually share or disclose to another person. This slide is very important, so I'll leave it up as I talk. Here's where you're allowed to, what are you allowed to, who and where are you allowed to share information? So obviously to the actual patient themselves, obviously I can share anything with you, but it's also required that anytime they ask for that information, I have to give it to them. So if somebody hits me up last year that saw me as a professional, I got to provide them whatever records they wanted from my treatment with them. Also, I'm allowed to share this information. I'm a doctor and I'm sending you to someone else, maybe to go get braces, and I'm your dentist. Can you do ortho? Great, I can do that. I can share your x-rays of your teeth with them. I'm allowed to do that. That's not a breach. If I need to, I got a health plan collecting payment. So they need to know you are in my office to collect the payment. So I can tell them that, right? And everything else, like if we're coordinating, scheduling appointments, things like that, it can happen. But the patient also has the ability to say who they don't, right? I could say, I don't want even my wife to know. I could say, you can't talk to anybody about this but me. And I have that option. And I don't have to submit that in writing. I can just tell you that, and that's enough. So the patient, again, the law is designed to protect the patient and it's going to be in the patient's favor. And also, sometimes there's this incident too, things just happen, right? So we just have to have the course or the conversation. So just know the rule there is the minimum necessary rule. Minimum necessary. If I'm going to share PHI, it's always, in every situation, the least amount of it I have to share. Okay? So that in general is the way you should just really approach kind of protecting that data at the end of the day. Let's talk general rules now. I want to talk about your actual HIPAA binder. The HIPAA binder is one of the most, it's like almost like this mythical creature, this mythical object. People have heard about the binders. It's kind of a mythical tale where what's required to be in there and how often it needs to be updated. Everyone has a different idea of it, because no one's completely sure. The binder is the bedrock of your HIPAA program. So I want to talk about that. So I'm going to give you some examples here. So I'm going to go back to the binder because I want to give you some examples. Let's start with, actually I don't, I want to give you some examples right now. So I want to give you a 2-minute talk about the HIPAA binder. The HIPAA binder, okay, it is proof. It is a guide and it's proof. It's two things. Your binder should have basically in writing everything that you're possibly going to ever do to protect PHI and follow HIPAA. It's spelled out in that binder. Everything I'm going to do. If I'm going to change my passwords every 6 weeks, I have that in writing in my binder. It's also a record of everything I have actually done in the past in regards to HIPAA. So if I did training last year, I did training before, if I updated my binder, I have proof of that. I can show you the signing off of all the training by all the employees. I could show you the old policy and procedure that's been outdated and I replaced it. Even when it gets outdated, again, you have to leave everything in your binder for a minimum of 6 years. So your HIPAA binder, again, it explains everything you will do or have done when it comes to HIPAA, period. I want to give you a quick example. I want to show you policies and procedures. So I'm logging into our digital binder here. I'm logging in. If you were a client of ours, every person in your practice would have a login to this. Let me shrink down the things we don't need here real fast. Specifically, I want to just talk about HIPAA. So this is our digital binder here. But I'm really showing you this. I want you to see the different policies and procedures. I'm going to go real slow here. There's a number of policies and procedures. All of you are required to have all of these. Think the who, what, when, where, how, why. Each of these policies and procedures need to be customized to your specific practice. I'll take an easy one. Let's do a password security policy. Who's in charge of administering this password security policy? How often do they need to change their passwords? When, or I should say, how difficult do they need to be? When do they need to get that done? Where do they go to change that? Everything about your password security has to be spelled out. And again, it's different for every single practice. So who, what, when, where, how, why are we going to apply every single one of these policies? So, they all need to be customized. This is where people hire lawyers and they bring in companies, because without it, I'm just opening up a simple one of these. Without it, it's like, who in your practice is going to write a legal document like this, right? So there's a lot of ways to get this done, but we can talk about those later when we're not teaching. But just realize, though, that you need to have all of these policy procedures. They need to be customized. And these are literally the things that spell out what you are going to do in any situation when it comes to HIPAA. Next, I do want to talk about the business associate agreements. It's super important. There's two types of people out there. There's CEs and there's BAs. All of you generally are a covered entity. It's who applies, HIPAA law applies to, all the practices like you apply. Then you have business associates, people that you share this PHI with. And I always love going back to the example of your practice management software. You have this practice management software. I'm a patient. I come in, I tell you my name, my date of birth. I've given you my PHI. What you do immediately is you type it into that practice management software. Now they have it. Let's say Open Dental. Open Dental has it. It's got stored on your computer somewhere. Your IT has it. It's in your data backup. Your data backup company has it. Those are 3 business associates that have that PHI right away. And they could get breached just like you can. Let me give you an example of how important this is. Here's a great example. $1.55 million fined to North Memorial Healthcare. Remember when I was telling you guys about those huge headlines that they like to make examples of people? This is it. This is a not-for-profit healthcare company. They're not even out to make a buck, and they're still getting fined $1.5 million. And really, something as simple as, and this is a true story, something as simple as a billing company had I'm a practice. I hired a billing company to go collect my outstanding accounts receivable. That guy has all my patients and their balances on a spreadsheet. His laptop got stolen at Starbucks with all that PHI on it. Now he just had a HIPAA breach, and that practice who hired him had a HIPAA breach. And during the investigation of that breach, they want to know, did you have a business associate agreement in place with that billing company? The business associate agreement is designed, right? You are adhering to HIPAA law. That billing company has to adhere to it as well. And it spells out saying, hey, we are trusting you with this PHI by signing this business associate agreement. You promise you're going to do everything in your power to protect this PHI as if it was your own. Okay? And if they didn't have that agreement with that billing company, boom, $1.5 million fine as they go out and audit and realize they didn't. These business associates that you're sharing your information with, they are getting breached all the time. Let me give you an example. This is the most mind-blowing thing you're going to probably see all webinar. I'm going to take you to the breach portal. So HIPAA is ran by the Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Civil Rights. This website I'm showing you here, this is the actual breach portal. These are all the practices in America that are reporting HIPAA breaches. I'm going to go ahead and scroll to the bottom of this here real fast. I want you to see that there is 100 practices on this first page, and it only goes back to August 22nd, exactly 2 months ago. So in the last 2 months, there are 100 practices around the US dealing with breaches. It may feel out of sight, out of mind, and that's because it is. Look, I don't know a single practice that ever got breached and went and bragged to their friends that they're dealing with an audit and a breach. They're going to keep that to themselves. But this is happening every single day. Here's a neurology center right up the street from my office here in Las Vegas. We call them. And you see here, first of all, hacking, IT, EMR program, hacking, email, hacking, network server. 95% of all of this is hacking. I told you this is happening every single day. And you know what else? Probably 1 in 10 are actually business associates. Not even the practices themselves. They're business associates that are getting breached. This is the breach portal. Some call it the wall of shame. I don't like calling it the wall of shame because the reality is there's nothing you could do to 100% prevent a breach. This can happen to anybody. The question is when this happens, they're going to come in there and audit your practice. And the question is how much are they going to fine you? 0? Was it your fault? Or did you do nothing to adhere to HIPAA and now they're going to fine you $1.5 million because you gladly didn't do anything with HIPAA? Same as when you deal with the breach itself. Is it a minor headache that you have to restore your whole system? Or is it a crazy bad headache because you didn't have your data backup in order? You didn't have all this stuff in place. Like, it could be a terrible experience. It can just be an annoying one. This is up to you. But these breaches are happening every single day. Anybody, anytime you want, feel free to Google breach portal HHS, and it'll take you to this page yourself. Happening in every single state, happening everywhere. So I'm just trying to drive home the point that cybersecurity is breaches are happening every single day, and you need to make sure you're protected, make sure your business associate agreement's in place, make sure you have your insurance. So let me give you an example of a business associate agreement here real fast. I'm going to go in here to the portal. So I'm going to open up one of the agreements. Obviously, we make it really easy, right? You can create a new business associate, fill in their details here for everyone you work with. You can see the date it's created. You can send it out directly here in the portal. You know, think DocuSign. And the day they sign it, it's stored here forever in your digital binder, because you need to have this stuff on file forever, for 6 years minimum. And I'm going to open up one of these agreements, and I want to highlight page 5 and just point out the indemnification clause. This is the part that I said is going to financially hold that business associate liable in the event they get breached, so you don't have to get caught holding the bag. They didn't do their job, let them get fined. It shouldn't reflect on you. So you got to have these business associate agreements. Literally, I could put one together in 30 seconds in this portal, and I could have saved North Memorial $1.5 million in 30 seconds. I'm sure they wish they had this webinar before they had that happen. So that is business associate agreements. Again, they're really important. They're going to really protect you and your people. There's very specific people. Here's a list of people who you need to have business associate agreements with, and here's a list of people you don't, right? You don't need to get it with your own employees or FedEx coming in there, or your janitor. You don't need one for them, but you do need it for all your typical stuff, right? Your IT providers, your cloud storage provider, whoever's doing your email marketing, you name it, you do need to have a business associate agreement with them. So if you're confused on how to implement this or anything else I'm talking about today, obviously you're gonna have an opportunity to meet with my team one-on-one whenever you're available to make it effective for you. But we're here to help with that, but you gotta have this stuff in place. I think I've driven that point home. And of course, if you're going back right now and reviewing yours, definitely be looking and see if they have an indemnification clause. So here's one of the biggest mistakes I see made, and I'll wrap up business associate agreements, is when you sign up with somebody or work with a business associate agreement, they're a lot bigger, usually a bigger company than you. Let's just use all of your practice management software companies, and I'll use Open Dental as an example. They're a much bigger company than you, a much bigger legal department. When you signed up with them, they gave you a business associate agreement. You signed it. That business associate agreement protected them. You have to have your own that they countersign. So I just wanted to warn you guys, if you've signed one, make sure you have one for them to countersign, because you're not compliant just by signing theirs. Okay. All right, polling question number 2. Get your polling ready. Which of the following is not considered a business associate? Is it A, your landlord, B, your IT provider, C, your software provider, or D, all of the above?
All right, I see some answers trickling in. We'll give everyone about 10 more seconds here. All right, so looks like we had 80% said your landlord, 18% said all of the above, 2% your software provider, and 2% your IT provider.
I can appreciate that. All of the above is always an enticing option on these things, but that is false. Those 2% of people who clicked C, I know you were guessing, because I think we've all seen those stats that C is the most likely option. But there 80% of you dead on, love it, your landlord. That's 100% correct. Good job. We're almost there, team. We're whipping through this. My pumpkin spice latte is keeping us moving really quick. Hopefully I'm not going too fast for all of you. Let's keep rolling. Let's keep going. We're getting it done. So let's talk next about, well, we talked a little bit about breaches already and what ransomware is. So let's talk a little bit about phishing real fast. Phishing is when you open up those emails and they're designed to look like they're from someone else that you know, but they're really just trying to fish and reel in some of your logins, your passwords, your credit card information, things of that nature. So that's phishing. So part of the training you give your team should be how to identify phishing emails. I think here's a phishing quiz with Google, a great example of a place you could send your team to do a little quiz. But let me give you all some examples here real quick. Here's an email from Costco. Is this a real email or a fake email? And if so, what are the telltale giveaways? I'll give you 15 seconds. Anyone want to put in the chat what some of the telltale giveaways are of this being real or not real? I'm sure you're all getting it right. All right, here's a couple of examples. It says it's from Costco. Email address is CBC Building. That's a little weird. You know, and then obviously when it comes to the actual email itself, you know, there's missing some commas here, right? It's giving you a deadline and you're gonna lose 21% of your money. It's giving you some urgency about Christmas. Y'all know this isn't real. This doesn't even sound right. Unfortunately, a lot of old folks out there probably fell for this. Let me give you another example. PayPal, hey, we need your help. What are the telltale giveaways on this? Well, always the email address. I mean, this is crazy. xxxx@berkeley.edu. It's from PayPal. Formatting's a little off. It's a little weird. These things work all the time. This is an example of, again, of a phishing email. So, you know, again, these emails can look really good on the outside, but once you click on some of these links, they're really bad for you on the inside. So that's really the theme I want you to see here. Third example for you. Perfect example. Kentucky Fried Chicken and Donut sandwich. Really looks good from the outside, probably terrible for you on the inside. All right, polling question number 3. Which is true about ransomware? A, the payment of ransom is typically through Bitcoin. B, email phishing is a common gateway to network access. C, ransomware can encrypt or lock your data. Or D, all of the above. The hint, I'll give you a hint, it is not E. It is not E.
Great hint. All right, we'll give everyone a few more seconds here. Okay, looks like people did pretty good here. 83% all of the above. 8% ransomware can encrypt locked data. Email phishing is a common gateway to network access, 8%, and then the payment of ransom typically through Bitcoin, 2%.
Well, the good news is technically whatever you put in there, you were at least partially right. A, B, and C are all correct. Therefore, D is the most correct answer. Good job, 83% of you. The rest of you, I still love you completely. All right, let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving. So we got about a handful of minutes left. I want to talk about the breach notification rule, the most annoying, frustrating, confusing rule you don't ever want to see, but if it happens, you need to be ready for it. That's the breach notification rule. And this is the law that says what must happen in the event of a breach. So I'm giving you several examples now of what it looks like when you have a ransomware attack pop up on your screen. I'll give you a quick example again. Boom, you walk into your computer. This is what you see. You got 6 days to pay us in Bitcoin. What do you do? So I love asking people this question when we're on calls, and I have my team ask this question all the time. What would you do? And we get some of the best answers, right? People, I'm gonna cuss. I'm gonna take a shot of vodka. You name it. Do something, because it's definitely the beginning of a bad day. But there are actually legal things that we actually need you to do by law in the event of this situation. So some of those things are, first, after you get done cursing and drinking, 1, you have to have a complete forensic investigation done of your computer. Meaning these super techie, nerdy, I don't call them nerdy, I'm a big nerd. These tech savvy guys need to get in there and look at your computer. People got on your computer, they need to do an analysis to see if they took something off. And if they took some data off, we need to make sure we know which data versus which data wasn't compromised. So that's data segmentation. All those people who did have their information stolen, we need to let them know. We're going to email them first class, mail them. We're going to send them an FAQ with questions on what to do. We are required by law to post it on our website. We are required by law to alert the local media. Why do you think it's so easy for me to find ransomware news? Because by law, people have to report it. You got to set up a call center. People need to know where they can call for the first 3 months to ask questions about this. You do all of that within the first, 90 days. and they're going to reward, and then you got to let the Department of Health and Human Services know, and they're going to reward you for all of that work by throwing you right here on this website, that wall of shame. And now they're going to say, great job. We're going to come tell you great job in person when we show up to do an audit of your practice. Get that binder ready. They're going to walk in your practice and say, you don't need to say anything. Everything we need to know is in this binder. Everything that you have done and everything you will do should be in this binder. And that's where your audit's going to start, and most of the time end as well. So we definitely want to make sure we're ready for this. So that is the breach notification rule. A lot has to happen there, and it could be very, very expensive. So with this just being said, you have to have an emergency and incident response plan. I'm going to jump back into the portal here real fast. And under the emergency planning, every practice has to have an emergency and incident response plan. This is going to spell out who your incident response team is, right? It's probably going to be a combination of the doctor, your IT team, you know, our clients. We are their incident response team. They have an issue, they come call us first thing, period, right? Who is that team for your practice that jumps into action? What's their name? What's their phone number? Part of that emergency plan is, of course, your data backup plan. Who's responsible for backing up your data? How are you backing it up? How are you testing and restoring it? All this stuff has to be documented in your plan before you have an issue. Same as your emergency mode. Again, you have to be able to access this information. Who's your IT company? So again, the emergency plan is the part that I've seen that's most absent when we work with practices. It's the part that you need the most when things go wrong, and it's the most likely piece that practices don't have. So we need to make sure we have that plan in place. So that's a very complicated process. You know, definitely make sure you have an emergency plan. For anyone that wants us to help build it, we'll help you build it as well. But it's something you really need because the costs associated with a breach are outrageous. Here's a real life example. This Dr. Sharma was getting ready to retire and dealt with a breach. And it can be, again, this is your, Dr. Sharma's life's work, everything she's worked for. The legal costs alone were 90 grand. Restoring the data and the decrypting of the data, almost 37 plus. The forensic investigation, those always are expensive. It's not your IT company, it's a whole forensic team coming out, 55 grand. And then they actually had to do multiple payments to these hackers in Iran or Russia or wherever they were, over $16,000 that they paid out in ransomware to get their computers back. This is a lot of money when you just wake up and all of a sudden you're on the hook for 200 grand. And this has nothing to do with the HIPAA audit. That's going to cost money afterwards if you weren't compliant. Luckily for Dr. Sharma, she had two things working for her. One, she worked with us, right? So we knew she was compliant. We backed up her data, her emails encrypted. We weren't worried about the effects of an audit. We eliminated her worry and fear of, not this slide, we eliminated her fears of dealing with these types of fines. But as I was showing you, she was still on the hook for the extreme cost of the data breach. There's still $200,000 in expenses here. And that is why it is very important that every practice have some sort of cybersecurity insurance. The numbers actually show, and I showed you with the breach portal, this is happening every single day. All of you are required to have malpractice insurance and general liability insurance. All of you have it. The numbers actually show you are more likely going to need your cybersecurity policy than either of those, but this one's not required. Just like life insurance. You don't have to have life insurance, but it's probably a good deal. I mean, it's not a good deal. I mean, you're dead. Great example also would be health insurance. You don't have to have health insurance. I guess technically now you do. But when things go wrong, you're sure going to be glad you have it. And that's cybersecurity insurance. Okay. And a good cybersecurity policy is going to protect you against a little bit of everything. For example, the policy, that we endorse. Hey, you have a new employee that came in here, opened the wrong email. Now you're dealing with a ransomware attack and a data breach. Covers that. You got to notify all those patients to do that forensic investigation. Covers that. HIPAA going to try to come in there and audit and fine you. Covers that. Your business is shut down, losing business while your computers are frozen. Covers that. Got to restore that data and all the costs. Covers that. PCI breaches, I told you, are also HIPAA breaches. covers that. So you need to have this policy, ideally one guaranteed, meaning they can't deny you, right? That's one of the biggest mistakes I see is people have a lot of fine print on their policies that they don't understand, and you need to have been underwritten. If you haven't been underwritten, then they don't know how risky you actually are. So there's going to be all this fine print that says, if you have a HIPAA, if you are not HIPAA compliant, we're not going to cover you. And I think I'm showing you how hard it is to be completely HIPAA compliant. So you need to have a HIPAA program. You need to have a solid insurance policy in place that's going to cover you from the worst. So with that being said, I'm going to skip the 2 minutes of OSHA. Actually, I'm just going to say a couple quick things about it. When it comes to OSHA, I would just say keep in mind that COVID fines are still happening. We all are freaking sick and tired of COVID. Obviously, we're glad we're not wearing masks no more, the majority of us. It's still annoying, but the reality is OSHA is still fining people. Here we go. This website lists all the COVID-related fines that OSHA is still dishing out. $3,000, $14,000, $125,000. This is all last month. This whole page is from last month. So OSHA is still finding people. Definitely make sure you're still staying on top of your OSHA stuff. I got some tools to help you guys out with that as well a little bit later. I have an OSHA readiness checklist that you guys can find. That same link on the compliance resources where you went to the third one that was risk assessment. The first one or the second one are HIPAA and OSHA checklists. So we have plenty of checklists for you to help you out with that. So let me wrap this up here with 20 quick tips, and then we'll kind of talk about what's next. So 20 quick tips for you and your practice. 1, update your HIPAA and your OSHA plans and your policies and procedures. They don't update themselves. It's going to help you in the long run. So we're here to help you update them if you need the help, but don't sit around and do nothing. Don't sit around and do nothing. Next one, make sure you document how PHI is accessed and secured during an emergency. This ties into that emergency plan, okay? Have to document everything. Everything should be written down in that binder somewhere. We got to figure out a process to do it, and you got to have the right tools. So document everything. Get those business associate agreements in place. Find out which of your people you work with need one. Get them built. Make sure they have an indemnification clause. Get them signed. Get them in your HIPAA binder and leave them there. Update them. As you do this progress, you should always document your PCI, your HIPAA, and OSHA compliance progress. Again, any action you actually take, you should have some sort of like log or signature or something in that binder that says you actually did it. HIPAA's not coming in there taking your word for it. They're, like I said, in an audit, they're gonna say, hand me your binder, everything I need to know should be in here. Document everything. Never, of course, share any PHI without proper authorization, okay? Always train your employees on the danger of downloading anything from their computers. Sometimes you see things download without you even clicking on it. You're like, oh, what just downloaded? Be aware, stay on top of it. So there's a lot of email phishing out there that'll say, hey, this is your boss. I need you to run to Walmart. Send a wire for me. That's phishing. Those are fake emails. They're trying to scam you. So never wire money from any email request. Be careful and aware of any new employees and their access to PHI. So let me stress this. HIPAA training, okay? HIPAA training, I'm gonna go back to this real fast. I brushed on it. HIPAA training is super important, but it needs to happen on day one with your employees, okay? From day one, they need to be trained. 3 things that training needs to be: modern and relevant, meaning you can't use some training materials from 10 years ago, and you can't make up your own training materials for the most part. Like, they need to be relevant. And then secondly, you need to have that training done every single year. Every single year. And then last but not least, every one of those employees need to sign an acknowledgement saying that they've done their training, okay? So let me give you a quick example. Back in our portal, obviously very easy, here we go, very easy to get your training done, right? Office Safe University, we have training in here, watch your training videos, but then once it's done, you gotta be able to have all the records of all the employees that have gotten their training done. Employee acknowledgements, You should have an acknowledgement, some signed document somewhere with all of your employees saying they did their training. And you'll see all the employees listed here, and you'll see a date here when the training was sent, the date that they signed their acknowledgement. Super important, okay? Train that team. Day one, they get access to PHI, train them that day. Never share photos or information on your website or social media. Great example of this, my own family member, I'll leave it at that, I won't call him out, was working in the hospital out in Austin, Texas. Famous running back for UT, was there receiving cancer treatments. She posted on her website, this was before I was in compliance, I would have definitely taught her better. Hey, you know, get well, Mr. So-and-so. But he's in the hospital. You can't advertise on social media that this person's in the hospital. That's violating their HIPAA rights. So be very careful with that. Beef those passwords up. No more home row, ASDF, no 123. Beef those passwords up. Make them more interesting, make them more complicated. Always make sure that your laptops, your computers, your cell phones, they lock immediately. Screen locking on those. It'd be really ridiculous to have a breach over just not having a password set on your devices. If those passwords are entered in too many times wrong, there should be a setting that erases the data. Always use that. Make sure you have all your stuff in place, your firewalls, your antivirus, all that great stuff. Make sure that's in place. Always have a 256 cloud-based solution as a data backup. Very important. You need to have that in the event of emergency. It's not good enough to plan for emergency. You need to expect it. You need to be ready for it. If you're acting retroactively, it's already too late. So get ahead of this stuff. I hate to stress it, but I've seen the worst, and I don't want it to happen to any of you. A little attention now will go a long way. Don't use public Wi-Fi. It's just too risky. Try not to store any actual PHI and patient data on a laptop. Those laptops are a leading cause of way too many horror stories. Stop using those Gmails and those AOLs and those Yahoos. Get a professional Exchange server that can be properly monitored and locked down and secured. And most importantly, to me, obtain that insurance. You have to have cyber insurance these days. Don't get stuck without it. So with that being said, I want to thank all of you for the CE. This concludes the CE portion. I have a couple free gifts and information to give out, but thank you all for allowing me to rattle off at you for the last hour and a half on HIPAA compliance. I hope you really enjoyed it. And just know, ultimately the goal was to avoid willful neglect. You need to make sure your entire program is buttoned up. There's a lot of categories to HIPAA, your payments, your PCI, your OSHA, cybersecurity, you name it. There's a lot of elements of compliance that we want to help you with all of that. So let me share with you guys 5 minutes of a little bit about what we do here at PCI HIPAA and OfficeSafe to let you know how we're going to be able to help you. So the first things first, inside the chat box, there are links that Jacob has put in there for two things. There's two types of, well, one, obviously we need you to do a survey. I'd love for you to do the survey. It helps us do a great job for you. We're going to email you that link as well. Two is, all of you, each practice did the risk assessment. I have a team full of people that love helping. We love helping. That's the first thing we do. We love educating. We want to help you have the best compliance program you've ever had, and we start with education. So I have an entire team of compliance professionals. I want you to click the request demo of compliance solution. What we're going to do is we're going to walk you through your HIPAA risk assessment first. We're going to show you what you're doing wrong. Make sure you understand what to do to fix it. We honestly, I would love to be your compliance company. I'd love to. Once you see what we do, it's a no-brainer to use us. But that is not what I want you to do. I do not want you to trust me on that. I want you to make a knowledge-based decision. My team will teach you what you're doing wrong, where your gaps are. And only when you're aware of where you're at, with your permission, will we take 5 minutes and show you how our solution can solve that for you. I know it can, but you need to believe and understand what you're doing wrong so you understand how we can even help. I and my team, so book that appointment. You can choose from any time. You and the doctor or compliance officer and doctor should attend. It will be the last time you need to spend that much time on compliance. If you thought there was a lot of great information in this, when you get that one-on-one help from my team, They're going to make sure you understand what's going on. You're going to walk away knowing what to do. Even if you don't want to work with my company, you'll walk away being educated on how to go shop for the next compliance company. But I am here to help you review this risk assessment. By law, you need to fix the gaps that it's pointing out. And we're going to help you do that for free. Absolutely. So my product, you saw the smallest of taste of it. This is a glimpse inside of my Office Safe portal. We have everything you could possibly need. Our whole HIPAA program is all your binders. This is our digital binder. We'll give you a physical one as well. We're going to automatically update these policies and procedures for you. We're going to customize them for you. We're going to make getting compliant very easy. I'm going to assign you a dedicated compliance specialist who's going to know your practice. It's like they work for you. They're just in my office remotely. They're going to know everyone's name. They're going to know where you're at. They're going to help you customize and implement this process. And then they're going to be here watching over you for the rest of the time you're our client, making sure you don't fail. It's hard to find somebody to hold your hand. So we'll help you with your policy procedures. We'll get all the business associate agreements filled out. If you ever have an issue, we'll build out your plan. You just click on report an incident, fill out these 20 questions. Our entire team of breach coaches and HIPAA attorneys are going to jump into action and solve and hold your hand and guide you through that breach. We got everything you need on the OSHA side, all your documents, all your safety data sheets, all your exposure plans, all the training you're going to need, whether it's HIPAA training for the team or for those of you who need CE or the HIPAA certification officer. I have a HIPAA officer certification that'll teach your team. So doctor, if you want this off your plate and you want to delegate this to your team, give them the training they need to do a good job for you. Give them the training they need to protect your practice. I have training course specifically for them. I'm going to give that out for free to everyone. Part of our resources we're going to give out are a free HIPAA certification training for any of your members. So we'll email you the link for that as well. OSHA training, even CE, we have over 1,300 hours of CE in our portal, webinars, on demand, you name it. A lot of it geared toward dental, but a lot accepted in a lot of different practices. So we are here for you. Nobody can do what we do when it comes to compliance. We are the leaders. To do what we do with compliance, you will need 4 to 8 different companies at the end of the day. So we will handle everything on your compliance better than you can ever imagine, and make it really, really easy for you. People are going to save money by hiring us. We're going to take over your email encryption, your data backup, your insurance, your HIPAA, your OSHA, your training. You name it, we're going to help you with it. I even have a lot of options to help you with your accounts receivable and payment integration. If your practice management system isn't automatically logging payments directly to people's health records, if you're spending time doing it the old-fashioned way, you're not doing it right. I have free payment integration. I have tools that'll help you collect 30% more of your accounts receivable. People owe you money, put more of that in your pocket. I have those tools for you for free as well. So for all of you, we have time to go over your options during our one-on-ones. I'm going to have free training for all of you that attended today. If you do end up deciding to work with us, we're giving you 10% off of our programs. In addition, you're already getting major, major discounts at the end of the day. So we're going to go over those with you. Right now, let's keep the focus on education. Let's get you educated so you can make some smart decisions. So I'm going to wrap up and let Jacob wrap everything up for us. I just want to thank you all so much again for the opportunity to teach you. Thank you for spending your valuable and limited resource of time with me today. I hope you really enjoyed it. And me and my team really look forward to working with you soon. Thank you all.
Terry, thank you, and really, really great job. If I learned anything, I learned that I probably don't want my life insurance policy to enact. So that's my number one takeaway. Good call.
That's it.
But just a few things before everyone signs off. As I mentioned before, CE credits will be coming your way next week. So if you don't get them by the end of next week, you can reach out to us, but those will be in your inbox. Make sure to check your spam and junk folder before reaching out to us, because sometimes they'll find their way in there. As mentioned before too, please fill out the survey. We're going to give out a few gift cards to people who completed that, just so we know how we did and Terry can learn for his next presentation. And we really thank you for being here today, taking a part of your busy Thursday to be with us. We hope you learned a lot, and we hope you join us again for another future webinar. So with that, Terry and I are going to sign off. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and take care.